Okay, it looks like we are live. So welcome to everybody. I'm going to let people join for the next couple of minutes. And if you are already watching, then remember that throughout the webinar, we want your questions. Our panel is going to answer questions as they come in addition to all of my questions. So tweet at us at Course Report. Or you can use the chat on the right-hand side of your screen. After we finish and wrap up the webinar today, we'll publish this on the Course Report blog, and then it'll be on YouTube, and you can rewatch it, share it with your friends, all that good stuff. Okay, so we've got some people filing in, so I think we can go ahead and get started. Yeah, I'm really excited for today's webinar. We talk a lot about the kind of career transformation that you can make when you quit your job and go to an immersive boot camp for 12 weeks to 6 months. But for the next hour, we're going to talk about the part-time boot camp experience and what it's like to study while you're balancing other commitments. And we're also going to talk about talk with our panel about how they turned that part-time boot camp into a new job. I think there are a lot of kind of obvious upsides to a part-time coding boot camp. You don't have to quit your job. So even if you totally, hate your job and want to move into tech, you can at least keep that income while you study. And then you can also, balance a part-time boot camp with other commitments like family, kids, all of those good things. But tell me in the comments if there's something that's attracting you to a part-time boot camp that I didn't cover. Would love to hear about why you're thinking about a part-time boot camp. So while you're in the comments, tell us just where you're coming from. Are you considering a coding boot camp? Have you already graduated from a coding boot camp? Maybe you've been accepted to a boot camp, but you can't choose between part-time or full-time. And ask us all your questions about part-time boot camps. We can try to confirm or debunk any rumors that you've heard also. Cool. Okay, so we'll get started in just a second. Remember that to ask questions or to leave a comment, you can tweet at us at Course Report, or you can use that chat on the right-hand side of your screen. Cool. All right, so we'll ask those questions as you leave them. And of course, who better to answer all of your and our questions about part-time boot camps than this lovely panel of part-time bootcamp graduates. So we all know that you are all alumni of part-time boot camps, but could y'all take a second and introduce yourself? Tell us which boot camp you went to, what you were up to before you went to a coding boot camp.
Sure, my name is Mauro. I graduated from Full Stack Academy in July 2017. And before doing that, I was I was on the IT part, but in a more managerial experience, and I wanted to get more hands-on. So that's basically why I decided to do it.
Cool. Nikki, what were you doing before?
Before, I had just begun working in a consultancy, and I was working remotely in that consultancy, but after a few months of starting there, I already knew it was not going to work out. So I wanted some options. So that's why I did the part-time bootcamp, and I graduated in October of 2016, basically just to give myself the option of, if I did want to leave, I could go somewhere completely different, because my background is hotel management and customer service and not techie at all.
Cool. And David, what were you? Oh, and Nikki, you went to Ironhack in Barcelona, right?
Yes, sorry, Ironhack in the Barcelona campus. Yeah, that's where I'm based now.
Amazing. And David, what were you doing before your part-time boot camp?
So I had a LED lighting distribution business, and I was starting to build a multifamily real estate portfolio up in Vermont. And I ended up going to New York Code and Design Academy in New York, and I think that's about it.
Cool. When did you graduate?
I graduated a little less than 2 months ago.
Oh, amazing. Okay, so we've got a couple of y'all have been in the industry for a while now. And then David, you're kind of newly graduated. So it's a great spectrum. And then we've got Jessica from Tech Talent South. She graduated from Tech Talent South, and she was having technical difficulties, so she may hop on. And then Jade, who went to Hack Right Academy and did the part-time program there, may also hop on. And if they do, then we will introduce them. Cool. So I'm kind of curious, did any of you weigh a decision between a part-time and a full-time boot camp? Like, why did you choose part-time over that like full-time immersive experience?
Well, in my case, I think I didn't have an option, really. I needed to keep working. So for me to do the full-time was not really, possible. So it took me a while to decide if the part-time was still hard because it was at night and during the weekends. But I ended up, deciding to do it, and I'm very happy that I took that decision.
Cool. Did anybody else like think about doing a full-time boot camp but decide on part-time instead?
No, for me, part-time made more sense for a number of reasons. One is that I was still kind of feeling out this other job, and it would allow me to do it while still seeing if maybe I was going to move into a different role and it would get better. So keep making money. The second reason is kind of to limit my pressure, because I feel like if you leave your job and you go to the full-time boot camp, you're committing already that I'm going to like this new world of tech, which in my case, I was not sure if I was going to like. So I was kind of limiting the pressure there by not having to do the boot camp and then immediately find a job in something that who knows how that will turn out. And the third reason for doing a part-time for me was because I'd been working in remote jobs so long. I noticed my circle was kind of getting smaller here in Barcelona. So I actually did part-time because I thought I'll meet other people living in Barcelona who want to be here for a while, because a lot of people come here, especially the Barcelona campus from Ironhack, and they do the full-time, 8 or 9 weeks, and they come from all kind of different countries, but then often they leave, and there's, in fact, in Florida, I think Miami is the biggest hub that they have, where they have a lot of jobs and opportunities, and people go back there and they have connections already. Whereas I kind of wanted to meet people who were going to study tech here, and then maybe we could even work together in the same companies in Barcelona. Those were my reasons.
Cool. That is a great kind of analysis of your options. That's smart. I mean, there are tons of part-time boot camps now, right? So why did each of you choose the boot camp that you chose? Was it, location only, or how did you kind of go through that process? I'm sure a lot of our viewers are now starting to approach.
Well, I was looking at Galvanize and Full Stack Academy, and one of the reasons I didn't choose the full-time program was because they were about 20 grand and 22 grand, and I didn't know how much I wanted to code. I'd had a developer I worked with in my old business, and I was just like in awe, and I thought he was a wizard, so I kind of wanted to be him. I chose New York Code and Design Academy just because it was 3 days a week. I could still keep 4-day weekends to work on my own projects, and the cost was much lower.
Did any of you, so we got a question from Stu who asked, did your part-time boot camp qualify you for tuition deferment, which is kind of this new trend of deferred tuition, or like sharing your income after you graduate? From what I've heard, that's mostly for full-time programs only, but did any of your programs offer deferred tuition?
No, but it did offer money, because I was a woman in tech, so I got a grand off. But I know a lot of these programs have some kind of grant of a grand off, so don't take it as just Ironhack. I'm sure there's a few out there that do something similar.
Cool.
Mara?
Yeah, and there were no option at the time that I did it. Maybe they have something now, but exactly, they were only designed for full-time at that point.
Got it. Okay, does anybody else want to talk about just their kind of like research process and what stood out about the bootcamp that you chose?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of coding bootcamps in Barcelona. In fact, I know the managing director of Barcelona Code Academy as a friend. This is since I've left Ironhack now. But I chose Ironhack mainly because it was a brand new program, this part-time. They'd never done the part-time before. That was the first session of it here in Barcelona. So it was a little bit unknown. The space was brand new. They had a really nice big building in Poblenou, a really nice district here in Barcelona. And it's right near all the gaming companies and everything over by Gloria, so it's a really nice area. And since I've actually been there a few times after leaving the bootcamp, it gets better every time. Now they have, typical stuff of all the ping pong tables, lovely, cushions on the auditorium. They didn't have cushions when I was there, all these things. And I'm like, oh, it's so much nicer now. It was nice before, but it's really nice now.
Cool.
Yeah, in my case, I started looking for bootcamps. So they were in California, but I was based in New York. And then Googling at some point, I found about Full Stack Academy and the fact that they have a flex, they have a part-time option. And then I decided to go one weekend to one of the training classes for JavaScript fundamentals. And I fell in love with the idea, and I left the building that day, decided that I was going to do it.
Cool. Mauro, I think some people kind of may think or assume that a bootcamp is only for total tech beginners, but you had some experience before in IT. Did you feel like full stack kind of not only fit your goals, but also would be challenging enough to you, having had that background in tech already?
Well, I would say having a background in computer science gives you an advantage, especially to get into the bootcamp. But saying that, I was most of the time focused on programming on C. And, for me, learn JavaScript was literally starting from scratch. And the level of detail that you get on the bootcamp is pretty high. And I'm very happy that I did it because, the technology has changed a lot since I started studying and today.
Cool. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about your experiences during the bootcamp. So we put out a call for questions. We got a lot of questions about time commitment. Could you each just go through and tell us about the time commitment at each school in the part-time class that you took? How many hours were you expected to be in the classroom?
For me, it was Tuesday and Thursdays from 6 to 9 in the evening, and then Saturday all day. I think it was from 10 to 5 or 9 to 5 all day. So 20 hours, what's that then? 10 hours a week or more than that? I can't add math.
Mine was 12 hours a week, same schedule, Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday.
Okay.
And then outside of class, that I'm sure we'll get into that later, but at the beginning of the boot camp, when you're doing HTML and CSS, I'd never even programmed, and I just probably, like many people, thought it wasn't too difficult. And then once you start getting into JavaScript, all of a sudden it goes from 3 hours of your own time to 20. You get addicted, depending on what you're working on. Or if you really don't care, you don't get addicted, and you'll have a really hard time.
Yeah, Full Stack had the same 6 to 9 twice per week, and then they have this immersive weekend of 2 days. I think it was from 9 to 6. I don't even remember. It was definitely the whole day. And besides that, another thing is that we were getting this weekend work. So on Thursday, we used to get assignments that it would require you sometimes of your weekend to do it. And on Wednesdays, we have like an open session that we can call remotely and work with people. So I use that day especially to study and just submit questions. So yeah, you commit to a lot of time in order to do it right.
David touched on this a little bit before, but Preston asked, did you spend a lot of out of class hours working on homework? Did y'all find that you were spending like many more hours in addition to those kind of 12 to 20 in class hours?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's necessary in studying anything around the world. You know, you've got to put in the time to do the homework, to consolidate those things you learn in class. Actually, we spent a good chunk of the time that we were together in person just working on exercises while we had the teacher there to ask. But yeah, you just have to plan. In my case, I didn't have this immersive weekend that you did on Saturdays and Sundays, Maro. I just had Saturdays. So Sunday for me was then the homework day. And I didn't really have time during the week. He did assign a lot of exercises, but I just don't have time. And he understands that I'm working a real job. And, you know, you do need a few evenings a week to relax, because it's very intense 6 months of working and studying. You know, you need some moments to relax.
Yes.
So Nikki, yours was 6 months long of that?
Yeah.
Okay, Iron Necklace. Was everybody's about 6 months long?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So yeah, Tori asks, how did you maintain a work-life study balance? Obviously, everyone was working at the time, kind of balancing that with studying at your part-time boot camp. But can you talk a little bit about how you worked the boot camp into your life? What other commitments were you juggling? And how did you kind of make whatever you needed to a priority? How did you prioritize, I guess?
I did things wrong the first time around. I ended up getting about 7 weeks into my boot camp the first time, and I had to drop out because I had picked up my first couple apartments, and all of a sudden I had, well, at that time I had 9 units. 6 of them were under construction and vacant, and I was just like, it wasn't worth the time to stay in my boot camp, because you really have to be ready to give up a substantial amount of personal time to get through it.
Okay, so David, for somebody who is thinking about starting a boot camp and doesn't want to have to drop out, 7 weeks in.
I did look at it as an advantage the second time around. But
oh, interesting. Yeah. What's your advice to them though, to like clear out? I mean, if you're working, you can't really predict what, your work life is going to be for those next 6 months. Any advice that you can give to people to like really set themselves up for success? Maybe tell your employer or something. Obviously you weren't working for it.
Oh, sure. I think just looking back on it, you're really just doing yourself a huge disservice by not putting effort in. And I had to cancel vacations. I had to, just like really expensive plane flights, because I had to get back for this next class. And it was all sort of because I wasn't ready to commit, and I didn't prioritize it.
So be ready to commit, be able to prioritize, cancel any vacations that you have in the next 6 months. Maro and Nikki, anything else that you would like, any other advice you would give to people?
Is, if you take the decision of doing a boot camp, then do it. I really enjoy the process. It took a toll, definitely. I was very, very, very busy all the time. I told my employer that I was doing it, so there were no secrets about it. So I will recommend that. But it's more about yourself. It's like if you decide to do a boot camp to improve how you work on this, or just to do a career change at some point, then take a commitment on it, and then it will be easier, especially if you start like spending the proper time on prepare, and it's up to you also. It's like you can get all those concepts and learn the basics, or you can get all the concepts and master it. And that's up to everybody.
I mean, from my perspective, I didn't tell my employer because I was thinking of changing careers. So as a result of this, I missed many beginnings of classes on Tuesdays and Thursdays in particular, because typically people here work until around 7. So obviously you try and organize yourself, but if you're getting calls, you've got to take them. So if you can tell your employer, I agree with the others, tell them. But if you don't, and I understand that side, and not keeping secrets, if they would have asked me, I would have told them, and they knew I wasn't happy. But, this was a problem for me because I wanted to commit, but I didn't have the time, and I couldn't let my current job down because you have that as a real commitment. So it was a bit difficult to juggle this, but I always made up for it on Saturdays by coming early and trying to catch up on some stuff.
Yeah, having that opportunity on the weekend. I like that all of the courses that y'all did all had weekend classes as well. It's kind of a opportunity to reinforce all of those things you learned in the week. Yeah, I think all of that is really good advice. Doing a part-time boot camp almost seems to me in my head like similar to doing an online boot camp, where it requires some serious self-motivation in addition to having that like structured curriculum from the boot camp. So all of those pieces of advice were awesome. And if you're tuning in, I said this in the beginning of the webinar, but please feel free to ask questions, use the comments feature in the live events page, or you can tweet at us at Course Report. Cool. Okay, so I think that some people might confuse a part-time boot camp with like an intro class or a weekend meetup. But all of the boot camps that y'all did were pretty intensive, right? So could you tell people what you actually learned at the boot camp, how deep the curriculum went, and what you actually covered when you were there?
Sure. You have different things that you learn. The first part will be JavaScript fundamentals. Then there is a part that we put the focus on learning about the server side. So we put the focus on building APIs and learning also about things like SQLize that allows you to model the database and database and relational models and so on. And then after we learn those concepts and we have tests to prove that we learned them, and you have to pass them. And after that, then we went to the client side and we start focusing on React in particular. And at the end, you start wrapping up and you start doing projects that are longer and that requires of all those components, to know very well JavaScript, to know how to build an API, and to know how to do the client side, to do a single page application, basically.
That sounds like the curriculum for a full-time boot camp also. Did everybody feel like the curricula was that kind of comprehensive and that you were learning everything that you did from it?
I remember feeling a bit overwhelmed at some points, but it works out in the end to put the effort in. But yeah, there was a lot of stuff we covered. Even sometimes we didn't go into depth on stuff, but we just introduced these concepts so that you could figure out more information on your own once you understood which one might be better for a different project.
A lot of boot camps or full-time boot camps are very project-based, where they like put you into groups and then you work on projects throughout the curriculum. How does that work in a part-time boot camp? Did you like have project groups? Did you work a lot on projects, or was it more kind of solo work because you weren't with your group every day, I guess?
The majority of hours were group-based. But we had 3 group projects and sort of homework that was solo all along the way. But where the majority of the learning took place was when you're actually replicating the things that you learned in class.
For me, all of ours was solo, basically. I mean, we did pair programming to do 1 or 2 activities, but other than that, everything was on your own.
In my
Interesting.
case,
yeah.
In my case, in full stack, it was either pair programming or it was a group. Except the weekend work that you do by yourself, all the others were really about teaming up, and the peer programming was a very important component to learn how to work with other person like the whole day.
Cool. Okay. So pair programming across the board, Ironhack a little bit less on the group emphasis, but more kind of solo projects. Cool. Okay. Jay Spivey asks, once you completed the boot camp, what resources were at your disposal for landing a job or contracting? So this is a perfect transition into talking about kind of what y'all are doing now. Could you go through and tell everybody what you're working on now that you've graduated?
Sure. So, I'm a software engineer. I'm currently working at 7Park Data, and here we are, I'm doing a lot of things like APIs. We are also working with big data, and all the front ends are. So we also have dashboards that are built on basically React. And but I would say yes, we had a lot of support when I finished the bootcamp. I had a lot of support, and I didn't. They have like hiring dates that you can go and have speak with potential employers, and also you can get advice on how to build your resume or how to prepare yourself to do your career change.
Did you find that everybody at Full Stack Flex was had the same goal as you to get a job as a software engineer?
Yes, everybody wanted a change for sure. That was a common, and not everybody went to those. Not everybody goes to those days. You have to prepare yourself. You have to prepare your speech. You have to prepare, all your resume and so on. But those things are there available to you, and even today I can use them if I want.
Okay, cool. Okay, so you're working as a software engineer now, Mauro. Nikki, what are you what are you working on?
So I have a mobile app here in Barcelona. It's called Match the Bar, and it helps people find a sports bar to watch a specific match. So you want to see Barcelona, Real Madrid, even though every bar will show that, and it shows you a map of the bar showing it. So it's very simple. From a tech point of view, it's quite simple, And actually this emerged from the Ironhack bootcamp, because originally it was just a website, and it was called Match Finder, and it was my final project for the show. So I presented it at the Hack Show, and people, liked the idea. It won the Hack Show, and I was like, oh wow, this is my first idea of that maybe other people like, because I developed it because it's a problem that I had, because I'm a football crazy person, and I love going to Irish bars and all of this and watching the English Premiership, and I always struggle with where to find it if I don't want to go right to the center. So I developed this website as just kind of an idea of, oh yeah, this would solve my problem. And then after getting that kind of vote of confidence, if you will, I continued developing it with my partner, who is actually a back-end engineer at Social Point, which is the games company here in Barcelona. Cool. So basically we developed it into a mobile app, because what bartender or bar owner is going to have a computer and be updating things, or they could do it from the progressive web app, but we wanted it to be a proper mobile app. So that's why we were doing that in our spare time for fun for a year and a half, after the bootcamp. And it wasn't until December of last year that I finally left that consultancy job that I had been hating since, 2 years prior. And I finally was like, okay, we're going to do it. We're going to go full time. And so that's how I got to what I'm doing.
Congratulations. Congratulations on leaving the job you didn't like too. Did you find that Ironhack, you didn't go through the kind of traditional job search period where you're like looking for a job as a software engineer at a company or at a startup. Did you find that Ironhack was able to be supportive with you pursuing your idea for the mobile app for Match the Bar?
Yeah, Ironhack is super supportive. I didn't follow up with them about the mobile app until quite recently, when I went there and was saying, hey, I can promote you because you guys promote me, because everything of the app is linked to them. But if I hadn't done the app and I had wanted to do what most students did, which was to kind of become a junior web developer right after the course and really make that switch immediately, they had the hiring week after, which was basically the judges who were reviewing some of the stuff for the hack show, so you could actually talk to those companies. They also have a really great community on Slack for alumni and students alike. So there's got to be thousands of people in this Slack now from any of the Iron Hack centers in the US as well. And one of the channels on there is jobs. And obviously we're all either budding entrepreneurs or programmers. So there's always some kind of stuff going on in that channel, which is actually really useful. And now they're doing even more and more things. They actually had a tech kind of conference or fair. I think they were partnering with another like hiring company recently, because I went there maybe 6 months back or maybe less, and they had the whole campus was just full of kind of exhibitors that they were presenting their company in the auditorium section, and then they all had tables and stands, and I was like, wow, you know, like if you want to find a job, you can definitely find a job. I just went to kind of see the ecosystem to meet other startups, but yeah, there was packed with students and people, you know, offering and wanting jobs.
Very neat. And David, what are you up to now?
So I'm working with a tech consulting company called Ecolution, and I'm pretty much learning where my bootcamp left off. So our curriculum kind of ended in React, and the front-end framework pretty much puts together everything you learn up until then. JavaScript, jQuery, connecting your database. So right now I'm pretty much prepping myself by learning the technology stack that they work in. So it looks like my first client would be JCrew in a couple of weeks.
Cool. Did NYCDA help you get that job? What was the process of getting that job after you graduated, or was it just your own skills? So
I'm the opposite of bougie, but I was like out sailing, and there was someone I really got along with on the boat, and I just mentioned that I was doing a boot camp, and he's like, "Oh, I have a tech consulting company. What are you doing after you graduate?" So that happened about 5 months into the boot camp.
What was, I'm always kind of curious what employers say when you tell them about a coding boot camp. So apparently that person was impressed that you had done a coding boot camp. Like, did they think that it was like enough to help you, you know, transition into doing this job?
Yeah, he said a lot of his developers had come out of boot camps, and I think a lot of employers now understand that you know, a boot camp is enough to get you to the point where you can learn their technology.
Okay, so Soon Cheng asks, what was this is kind of a sensitive subject, I guess, but what was the difference in your salary rise after you completed the bootcamp program? So you don't have to like give numbers, I guess, if you don't want to, but just kind of thinking about like the return on your investment. This was obviously not, you know, it was a chunk of change to invest in your career and into these new skills. Do you think that it was worth it from a kind of return on investment standpoint?
It definitely, in my case, it definitely pay off. Like it pay off maybe a year later, but it did. So I'm glad that I did it.
For me, financially, not so much right now, just because I'm a founder of a startup. So, you know, I don't pay myself very much. But as far as like happiness and actually building something that's mine, I think I've definitely got that back. And if I did want to, you know, give up my app and go and work as you know, junior web developer or web developer, I'm sure I would be on the same salary as I had, because I came from a background of customer service and I had already worked my way up in that industry. So I knew I was going to take a pay cut if I did a career change. But the jobs are very good here in Barcelona with tech, so I wasn't really worried about getting a job.
Okay, Sean. Oh yeah, go ahead. Sorry, David, I cut you off.
Oh, sure. So I had my own 2 businesses before I even started into this. So I'd say like 3 weeks into my job, like I'm definitely not not making as much money as I did before. But it's really kind of a cool experience now to like go onto Indeed.com, and everything that people are asking for, you're thinking, oh, I do that. Like, I know this. It's not like when you first graduate college and it's like, we're looking for a can-do attitude and a bachelor's degree. Like now they're saying, like, do you know Postgres and Node, and just things that you can really speak to. So it's confidence inspiring. Financially, hasn't paid off yet.
But you're 3 weeks in.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Okay, so Sean Blessing asked this, he's tuning in, he asked this a while ago, but I think it actually applies now. For the Tuesday, Thursday, those 3-hour sessions, was 3 hours enough? Like, was it difficult to get through that material in just 3 hours? So maybe you could answer that, but also like looking back, do you think that the amount of time that you spent at the part-time bootcamp was enough to kind of launch this new career, or Mauro, in your case, this kind of new like promotion of a career?
Well, it definitely is enough if you spend more time after after that period of time. Meaning, they give you a lot of information. You do a lot of exercises with other people, but at the end of the day, you have to sit yourself and practice if you want to master it. And but the fact that you are going twice per week for 4 hours or 3 hours is already put your mindset in the right place to learn this. Because even if you have no more time, that you are still going twice per week and thinking for all those hours about JavaScript and about coding, and you definitely will get something from that. And then if you add practice to it, then you will master it.
Yeah, I don't think you could fit in much more in terms of during the week itself, because remember, you've worked an entire full day. You've already commuted to your regular job, and you've worked a full day, and then you've commuted somewhere else, and then you're a bit frazzled. I don't think you could do more days of the week or more hours in that evening, because I just would start tuning out, I'm sure, after about 3 hours. So I think if you're worried about not having, I guess, time to absorb it all, or not having time to cover as much as you want, then plan maybe an additional month before or after, and yourself, with the knowledge from Ironhack in my case, or from others, maybe you have pre-course work, or maybe now you know what you want to investigate a little bit further. You don't have to make it a 6-month boot camp. You could make it your own little version of a 7-month boot camp and try and get some more experience and some stuff after.
I would definitely say, I'm sure a lot of people viewing this have done YouTube tutorials, or just like entry level, like Rails for Zombies, stuff like that. Say between Tuesday and Thursday, it's really hard to describe what happens if you haven't touched your project since Tuesday night when you open your computer on Thursday and you're just learning. So I don't think it's ever enough. Like, the whole nature of programming is that it's a lifelong endeavor. It's not like you finish a boot camp and then you don't progress the rest of your life. It's just think of it as like the very beginning 10% in a massive scale.
Actually, when you touched on Rails for Zombies, this type of stuff, this reminds me of another reason actually I chose to do a boot camp in general, whether it's part-time or full-time, is that I kind of needed to do something in person. at least in the beginning. Like I would have loved to do all these kind of online tutorials or an Udemy course or this kind of stuff, but in order to motivate myself, I kind of needed that kick in the butt to go physically. I've made the financial commitment and physically got to be here for 6 months. So now afterwards, I'm much more motivated to learn little things on my own. I think if I had straight up started with just the list of the curriculum that Ironhack's going to do, and you do it yourself with online tutorials, I never would have done it.
I agree.
Yeah, I get that question all the time. Can't you just learn this on your own? Isn't this all just online? Can't you do it for free or really cheap? And I think, Nikki, that is the perfect kind of answer to that question. The guidance and the commitment of actually like paying money for it and going to a classroom every week can really keep people on track, especially if you're committing to something part-time. Having somewhere to go every week, 3 times a week, can really be that like motivator. So I love that. Did anybody, John Emanuel asks, did any of your boot camps offer job guarantees for the part-time coding course? I was trying to think about this question before the webinar, and I can't think of any boot camps that do offer a part-time job guarantee. Did any of y'all's? No?
Mine didn't offer a guarantee, but I remember Skyping with one of the campus managers or something before I joined and saying, how many people have jobs after? And in that moment, the statistic was supposedly 97%. I don't know what it is today, you know, almost 2 years later, but I asked that question because I was kind of unsure myself.
Smart.
It wasn't a guarantee, but it was just statistic at the time.
Yeah, that's smart.
Yeah, and also, like, you don't want to completely base your decision based on the job placement rate. Because like you don't know if those people are happy, you don't know if those people were just like kind of shoved into a position that kind of fit because they wanted to. Just be careful with statistics. Like I actually went to I went to 2 boot camps in person before mine, and you just kind of have to spend 20 minutes there and sit down on their couches, maybe hit their ping pong balls or something. Because everyone has a really unique feel. I'm really jealous of playing ping pong in Barcelona sometime.
Well, if you come over here.
That's great.
I'm going to Spain next week, yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, that's great advice, David. I tell everybody, like, if you can get to an intro class at the boot camp or a meetup that they're hosting, like any boot camp worth its weight should be hosting some kind of events in their space, right? So do whatever you can to visit the classroom and actually see if it's gonna fit your needs. So yeah, that's awesome advice. Wonderful. All right. Well, I think that we can wrap up. Let me just make sure we don't have other questions. Well, actually, this is the perfect way to wrap up. Greg asks, what advice would each panelist give to those considering taking a part-time boot camp to make a career change? Anything that we didn't touch on that you would tell a friend who is about to start a coding boot camp?
Sure. If you are already researching about boot camps, if you have been on a meetup, you definitely have some interest for doing it. So you have to ask yourself, really, it's not about the job placement or anything. It's about if you have the curiosity and if you're hungry for more knowledge. And if that's the case, definitely you should do it. Just if you decide, commit to it and learn as much as you can. And then all the other things will come, the perfect job, the perfect, activity in your life. So that would be my advice. Think if you really want to do it from your personal when you want to gain knowledge. If that's your state, then you should do it.
Amazing.
Fully agree.
David, anything that you would, any advice you would give that we haven't already touched on? I think we've gotten a lot.
Try your best. I'm kidding. No, but really you should. you're just doing a huge disservice to yourself if you don't.
Cool. Wonderful. Well, thank you so much to our panel. I feel like I've learned so much about the part-time experience in just 40 minutes. Pretty amazing. So thank you all so much for joining. We will post a recording and a transcript of this webinar on our blog soon, and we will include Twitter handles for our panelists and contact info for the boot camps that they went to, so you can get in touch if you're interested. And then also thank you so much for tuning in and asking questions. Tweet at us, email us, let us know what topic you'd like to see us cover in the next course report webinar. Thanks, y'all.